recently published this book, which is called A Home in Myanmar, because I spent 10 years overseas, and 4 of those years I spent in Myanmar. My second book already, and part of that will be set in Pakistan because I travelled through Pakistan for 2 months back in 2006. I moved to London and then I moved to Bangladesh and then I moved to Myanmar, always chasing my ambitions. Okay, today my stars are not aligned. Probably more bad things are going to happen. Tomorrow is a new day. I think if you can try and be happy in a way that doesn't hurt anybody else, but strive for happiness, don't feel guilty about striving for happiness and go for it.
Assalamu alaikum to all of you. This is Hammad Zafar show and you are watching Hammad Zafar live show. And today my guest is Jessica. Who is Jessica and what she intend to do in the future? We will know more about her. But I want to introduce about herself. She is the author of Our Home in Myanmar 2021. She worked in Yangon as a journalist. Also, she is a freelance journalist covering business, technology, and lifestyle. So first of all, Jessica, thank you so much for giving us your precious time. As you know that I have introduced you a little bit with our viewers. So now I want you to introduce yourself with our viewers. Who is Jessica and what she intend to do in the future? Over to you, Jessica.
Okay, well, thanks for having me on your show. My name is Jessica Mudditt. I live in Sydney, Australia. I recently published this book, which is called A Home in Myanmar. Because I spent 10 years overseas, and 4 of those years I spent in Myanmar. So I wrote a book about some of the political changes that the country was going through, moving from dictatorship to democracy, but also what was it like living in Myanmar as a foreigner, because this country had been separated from the world for 50 years. So then suddenly people from all around the world were coming to live in Myanmar. And so it was, there were some very interesting experiences. And in the future, I hope to write more books and continue journalism. So I've actually started writing my second book already. And part of that will be set in Pakistan because I travelled through Pakistan for 2 months back in 2006.
Thank you so much, Jessica, for introducing yourself. And you're always welcome whenever you visit again in Pakistan. Jessica, my next question is that, as we know that you belong from Australia, Sydney. So kindly tell us, our viewers, what is the speciality of Australia, and kindly share some interesting and hidden facts about the culture of Australia.
Okay. Well, I was born in Melbourne, but since 2016, I've lived in Sydney. So I'm getting to know Sydney as an outsider. And also I was away from my own country for 10 years. So when I came back to Australia, I had really bad reverse culture shock because it felt like I'd landed in this strange planet that was familiar, but also really unfamiliar. So what struck me when I came back after living in Asia for 7 years was how many rules there are. There's a rule for everything and everybody obeys the rules. So when I wanted to cross the street and there'd be like there's a little green man or the little red man, the pedestrian crossing. And even if there's no cars passing at all, until the light changes, everybody just stands where they are, even though it would be safe to go. Australians are really law abiding, but we're also very relaxed. So we work hard, but we're pretty relaxed on the weekend. And we swear a lot and we drink a lot. And we love being outside and love playing sport, which you probably know. You probably know about the sport. Do you like cricket?
Yeah, exactly. I like cricket too.
Yeah. So it's a lot of people love cricket, and also football and netball and basketball and hockey. I used to play hockey. Yeah. So, and like Sydney I think it's a really lovely city because there's 100 beaches in Sydney. So everywhere you go, there's kind of somewhere to swim, which is really lovely. So, and the climate is really good. So at the moment, it's like 20 degrees in the daytime, and then it drops down to about 15 at night. And you can swim all through winter. Like I don't, but my uncle swims in the ocean every day, even through winter. So the winter doesn't get very cold. We don't get snow, but there are mountains about 3 or 4 hours from Sydney.
Thank you so much, Jessica, for telling us, our viewers, about the culture and speciality of Australia. So, Jessica, my next question is that as we know that you are the author of Our Home in Myanmar, so kindly tell us, our viewers, about this book, and also kindly tell us, our viewers, when you start to write this book and what was the reason to start writing this book.
I started writing the book when I came back to Australia. So I came back to Australia in 2016, and I started writing the book in about 2017, 2018, and I finished writing the book in April. So really quickly, like I finished it in terms of, it had been edited and all those kinds of things. The reason I wanted to write it was because Myanmar was going through this really historic period where you had 50 years of dictatorship, and suddenly the generals said, let's set up parliament. Aung San Suu Kyi, the Nobel Peace Prize winner, she can be released from house arrest after 15 years. We want to do business with the world. The media was changing. So I went and I joined the Myanmar Times, and there used to be these really strict rules for journalists. You had to submit everything to the censorship authorities before it was allowed to be printed in the newspaper. Newspapers were only allowed to be weekly. You weren't allowed to have a daily newspaper. There was only one private newspaper, and the other newspapers were owned by the government. And I actually worked at one of the state-run newspapers during the election. So, and I'd been living in Bangladesh with my husband, who I met in Bangladesh because I used to live in Bangladesh, and he was my translator. So we moved to Myanmar in 2012, just as it was beginning to change. And then in 2015, there were the elections, and Aung San Suu Kyi won the elections. But between that, all this interesting stuff happened. Like tourism opened up, used to all be, a lot of it was off limits. President Obama came twice. There were rock concerts. It was amazing. Like, it was just, the country was changing so fast, but also there was bad things. Like, there was a lot of traffic on the roads. There was arguably the environment wasn't really being looked after in terms of the extra tourism, like in the lakes and the rivers. So I wanted to write about this really optimistic time for Myanmar. But then, as you probably know, there was the coup on the 1st of February. So the country has gone from dictatorship to democracy and back to dictatorship. So my book, as it turns out, I didn't know when I was writing it, is actually about a small, window of time when Myanmar began to embrace democracy. So I'm really glad that I wrote it because it's a record of that. And hopefully it's a book that people who don't know about Myanmar, you don't need to know about Myanmar to hopefully enjoy it, because I'm not coming at it from like an academic or an expert sort of point of view. I only lived there for 4 years, and I didn't speak the language, so I was still very much an outsider. And yeah, that's why I wrote the book, and that's why I hope to continue writing other books about other countries, to open it up to an audience that may not be familiar with the country.
Sure, thank you so much, Jessica, for telling us, our viewers, what was the reasons that you wrote that book. So, Jessica, my next question is that I wanna get your opinion on that point. In your point of view, dictatorship is better or democracy is better? And if democracy is better in your point of view, or dictatorship is better in your point of view, so please elaborate with the reason kindly.
Okay. I think democracy is better. It's harder and it's slower to achieve things. So sometimes people in Myanmar, this might sound strange, but some foreigners said to me, oh, it was so much easier to do business when Myanmar was a dictatorship. I didn't have to get permission from, all these different people, and it didn't matter what the public thought. You could go and sort of do your mining or do whatever you needed to do. But I think that a dictatorship is not really, it's not the full potential of a country, because it's not taking into account everyone's views. It's only taking into account the powerful people's views. And the kinds of people who want to have all the power are not the kinds of people that will be thinking of what does everybody want and need. So how can we have the best education and the best health and the best opportunities and equality for everybody? So even though, sometimes in Australia, I disagree with the election results and I get really frustrated at our politicians. I know that they care what we think because their job is dependent on what we think. And if they really, really annoy us, they're going to lose their jobs. They're going to at least, be in opposition. So the majority gets to have their say as opposed to the minority, which will always just serve their own interests. And I would love to know what you think about the situation in Afghanistan with the Taliban returning.
Exactly, Jessica. As you tell us, our viewers, democracy is better, and most of the people also favorism in democracy. So, Jessica, my next question is that what is the true definition of journalism
Okay.
according to your point of view?
Okay. Well, my definition of journalism, I'm not a news journalist. I'm a features journalist. So I write kind of longer articles and I don't break news. So for me, it's about telling other people's stories, interesting stories that haven't been told before. They haven't been told in that way. And it's about conveying information to the public in a way that is accessible. So it's not writing a book and it's not poetry. It's really easy to understand information. And I think a central part of journalism is really good quotes. So if you interview people and you gain their trust and they give you really good quotes that reveal truly what they think and how they feel on an emotional level, I think that makes for an interesting story.
Exactly, Jessica. My next question is that how we can improve our communication skills and what is the importance of communication skills in your eyes?
Well, I think if you don't have any communication skills, how do you tell people what you need? So, one of the best things that I ever heard, the best bit of advice, was know what you want and how to ask for it. And that's how you can hopefully have a happy life. Because you need to communicate your needs and you need to be able to ask other people what they need as well. So, if you don't ask, they probably think that you don't care. And so with whether it's your relationship or your work relationships, whatever you're trying to achieve in life. And for me as a writer, my whole life, I guess, is about communicating better. How can I communicate in the most simple, direct, hopefully entertaining way?
Thank you so much, Jessica. Jessica, my next question is that as we know that a man learn at every stage of his life till his last breath. So my question to you is that what did you learn from your life till now? If I ask you what is your life experience till now, so what will your answer?
Okay. Well, based on so many mistakes, I would say perseverance is probably the thing that I've learned because I never seem to get what I want straight away. From a professional point of view, I wanted to be a journalist for so long and I found it so difficult. And I had to move countries. I moved first I moved to London and then I moved to Bangladesh and then I moved to Myanmar, always chasing my ambitions. And then when I moved back to Australia, I had to start from zero again because I was nobody when I came back to Australia. I had no contacts. I'd never written for any of the newspapers. So it has to be perseverance. And part of that is accepting rejection. So all the times I wrote to editors or someone like you, can I be on your show? Can I write an article? And they say no. You just have to ask somebody else until they say yes, and never to kind of, give up on what you want to do. And eventually, I'm not there yet, but I feel like I've achieved part of my goals.
Exactly, Jessica. Good. I am really enjoy to talk with you, and I find out one thing in yourself. No doubt you have many qualities, but you have a good communication skills, and I really enjoy to talk with you. So, Jessica, my next question is that as we know that education plays a very important role in every nation to bring it peak. So, my question is that kindly can you tell us about the education system of Australia? And you visited many countries like Myanmar, Bangladesh. So, kindly please tell us about their education system and what you did learn from these countries.
Well, I think Australia has a really good education system. I think it's, it's considered, I mean, it's not as good as, the United States or the UK, but we do get a lot of international students. I think for most people, their top preference would be the United States or the UK. But it is a good system. We have public education, so it's free. We used to have free university, but that got wiped out, which I think is really unfortunate because university is really expensive. But I would say, there's a great deal of free debate on campuses, and they're really, before the pandemic, when you could go to, campus at university, like I had really good experiences. I did all different, I played hockey. I traveled around Australia playing hockey in the university games. I went to different protests. I think I did some debating. I went to lots of different clubs. There was a club for everything, so you could, pursue your interests. And the quality of the lecturers I thought was really high. So I did a double degree of law, which I actually found really boring, but my lecturers were good. I just didn't enjoy it. And I did arts. So I majored in history, and I found that fascinating. And I would go back to a lecture tomorrow. I actually have a friend who's a lecturer, and I'm always saying to her, can I go with you and watch your lecture at university? Because I just have the best memories. I learned so much. My brain just took in a lot of stuff about, women and history. But then when I went traveling, I realized that there was so many gaps in my education. Like when I went to Cambodia, and I saw that, the terrible things that happened with the genocide there, I'd never learnt about that at school. And that happened, that's right on, Australia's doorstep, Southeast Asia. So I think there's certainly room for improvement, but on the whole, it's pretty good. But I would say, because when I lived in Bangladesh, I taught English at the British Council. And I would say that the Bangladeshi students were pretty amazing. Like their determination to learn and their work ethic was so strong. And I also taught journalism, pardon me. I taught journalism at the University of Liberal Arts in Dhaka in Bangladesh. And again, I didn't have to remind my students to do their homework. They did everything, and they would be asking, what else can we do? How else can we learn? So I loved the enthusiasm. I think people work really hard in Bangladesh.
Thank you so much, Jessica, for telling us, our viewers, about the education system of different countries that you visited. So, Jessica, my next question is that, and I oftenly this question I am asking with my different guests. Question is that describe 2020 in one word and describe 2021 in one word.
Terrible and okay.
Sure, Jessica. Thank you so much. Jessica, my next question is that every person have some goals in their life. No doubt, he is married or unmarried. It doesn't matter. So my question to you is that what are your future goals and what you want to do in your upcoming future?
So I would like to write a lot of books. So I have ideas for 2 books. One book will be about traveling, the book that I mentioned, part of which will be set in Pakistan, which again is a memoir. I love writing memoir, so non-fiction. And the other book will be about living in Bangladesh. So I lived there for 3 years, from 2009 to 2012. And then after those 2 books are finished, I might write about my life right now, because it'll probably be 5 or 6 years away. And I would honestly just like to write books until the day I die. And if I'm able to do that, if people will read my books and buy my books, I'll be very happy.
Exactly, Jessica. Inshallah, people will read your books and will learn a lot from your site. So, Jessica, my next question is that I have only two questions left. Second last question is that as we know that every human being facing some difficulties in their life. So my question to you is that how you manage and tackle the difficulties that you face in your life, and what is your strategy to overcome on troubles and difficulties?
I think I've gotten better at this as I get older, and also having the pandemic has been given me a lot of practice. But also living overseas in countries that are very dissimilar from my own has also taught me a lot. When things are difficult and you can't just call your mum up or see a friend, like you don't know anybody, and you don't really understand the world around you. I think I'm a really impatient person, but I think patience that this too will pass is a really good thing to acknowledge. And sometimes the best thing for me to do is just go to bed. Like go to bed, go to sleep, don't think about the problems, and just get up in the morning and things won't seem as bad. And just knowing that when I get up in the morning, things won't seem as bad because I'll be fresh, hopefully, brings me a lot of comfort. So if I'm having a terrible day at work, 3 editors have said no to my story ideas or something like that, I just think, okay, today my stars are not aligned. Probably more bad things are going to happen. Tomorrow is a new day. Get a lot of rest tonight and then start again.
Thank you so much, Jessica, for giving us your precious time. And believe me, I really enjoy to talk with you. And hopefully, people will learn many things from your site. So, my next and last question is to you. That is, what message would you like to convey to the people of the world wherever they are living right now?
Gosh, I think if you can try and be happy in a way that doesn't hurt anybody else, but strive for happiness, don't feel guilty about striving for happiness, and go for it. Like work out what you want to do with your life and then go and do it, because you've just got this life. So I don't think there's any point stewing over all the things that have gone wrong and what might happen or what might not happen. Is, I don't know, just try and have a good, happy life, because when you look back, you'll remember the good times. I don't think you'll remember the boring times or even the annoying times. Like when I look back on like all of Myanmar, it's the really special, happy times that I think about first. And I guess that'll be true when I'm, old and dying. So I myself, I just want to be happy and peaceful and contribute to something, to help other people.
Thank you so much, Jessica. I'm really humbled and thankful to you that you join us today. And hopefully, inshallah, in future, I will invite you on some another platform to discuss some more things and to take some your opinions. So thank you so much, Jessica, for giving me your precious time.
Thanks for having me, Hammad. It was really nice.